If you are not updated in my video, that is when you will not see this guy's video. But if you're updated, I've done one particular video about this guy. But one good thing I love about this guy is that he will not rest until he keep getting fafo that he actually deserve. Because let it make sense to me that right now, black people now have privilege. Now the white people no longer have privilege. Black people have privilege. And sometimes I wonder if these people do not critically look at their analysis before coming to present it online. I never knew that people have privilege as blacks. I thought it is the only white folks that have privilege. But listen to the fafo that met him. Oh God. Welcome back to the channel. My name is Sonia. Subscribe, like, comment, and share. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. So this is like a part 2. So I want you guys to watch and give me your honest analysis and give me your honest opinion in the comment section that black people have privilege. Let's get right into it, guys.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world.
Welcome to my page. Now you know you fucked up.
Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference?
And here's the average rent in Egypt. So going by your logic, Egyptians are paying 1/5 of their monthly salary to their rent. But wait, what's the average rent in the United States? Oh, here it is, $1,700 a month. So going by your logic, we're in the fucking negative in America. Also, since you want to continue the narrative that black people are more on welfare than white people, here's the actual fucking stats. White people 37%, while black people are 26%. But please, continue with your racist rant.
Just imagine being born in Harlem, New York, one of the richest cities in the world, in one of the richest countries in the world, and complaining about not being able to get out of the ghetto. While some Middle Eastern refugee has to smuggle himself to America illegally in a cargo bay of the ship, not having home, not having money, not having citizenship, just to get the slightest chance at life that you had since birth.
Just imagine living in a country where they incarcerate your own citizens by the masses and then put in modern day slavery because the 13th Amendment says that slavery is illegal unless you commit a crime, and then have big corporations make them do cheap labor and make 25 cents a fucking hour. Or have laws that are so racist that it literally inspired Hitler to travel to America and take it back to his own people, and some of those laws still apply today. And just remember, those black Americans that you keep disrespecting are the ones who fought for those civil rights so those immigrants could come over here and have the rights that they have today. So keep them out your fucking mouth. But again, please continue with your bullshit rant.
Oh, and he's running from his country because your country destroyed his home, by the way. And he still somehow manages to open up his own business so he can provide for his kids. And you can't get out of the ghetto, really? Man, maybe take a subway?
Or you mean America, where 2.2 million people in America don't have access to clean basic water needs, or 44 million people who have inadequate water systems. And when we have a city in America that has a water crisis so bad, which started in 2014 in Flint, Michigan, America does absolutely nothing to fix it. Same thing goes for Jackson, Mississippi. Yet the United States won't hesitate for a fucking second to invest in Nigeria, which we are the largest foreign investor in Nigeria. And they also committed $27 billion to Ukraine since 2014, before the war started, and have given over $24 billion since the war started. You know, this country you mentioned. And you won't get an argument out of me where America invades other countries and destroys their home, because it's totally fucked up, and I got friends that were affected by that. But trying to compare apples to oranges is not the way to go about it. And if you want to talk about immigrants come to America where they think it might be easier here than it is in their own country, I think you're mistaken. Because many Nigerians who recently relocated to the United States for better opportunities found the reality harsher than they anticipated. Immigrants like Adian, who once had a successful business and highly educated with a university degree, had to start from the bottom once they arrived to the United States, leaving them financially stuck, the very situation they were escaping from Nigeria. In fact, it puts them in very bad situations where they had to work factory jobs and minimum wage in the United States of America, putting them in very financial bad situations. Oh, did I mention highly educated? And may I quote said immigrant, "The sad part is people at home don't know what you're going through. They expect you to send money. Your parents, your siblings, your friends, everybody wants money from you." And me as an American who lives in very diverse cities and has many immigrant friends who have successful businesses in their home countries, and now see them struggling every fucking day because they thought America would have better opportunity for them. So stop trying to push this idea that Americans are just fucking lazy and they don't want to work, because I guarantee you that's not the case. Also, I lived in Harlem for many, many years. What do you think the subway is, where we just pay $3.75 and go anywhere in the city that we want, and we're just gonna change our life over a fucking night? Because it's not how it fucking works. But please, continue.
Please, don't give me that excuse about America being racist. Here's the list of richest households in the United States by ethnicity. White people are not even in top 5. It's Indians, Filipinos, Taiwanese, Sri Lankan, Japanese, and then some.
Of course India is number one, because there's 1.4 billion of them in their own fucking country, and they're on track to surpass China. And if you're gonna speak on these facts, you need to learn how to fucking read, because it says median household income, which means how many people in this home live in this home, how much do they make as a whole. Meaning, white people do not fucking live together. We get the fuck out by the time we 18. But Indians and Filipinos, and I can speak directly for the Filipino community because I lived with many of them. I also lived in the Philippines. They live with their entire family, even up to their fucking 30s, even sometimes even fucking longer. So that means there's more people in that home that make more fucking money to equate to that fucking number. So please, wrap this up.
America is literally the least racist country in the world. Can you name any other dominantly white country that had black president for 2 terms in a row?
So you think just because America had a black president one time for 2 terms makes us not racist? You sound just like the racists, because the response to that was Donald Trump, a white man who wanted to make America great again. And while Obama was in office, racist Americans would call him the N-word, put pictures of hanging him by the nose, or calling him a fucking monkey. So before you speak on my country, learn your fucking facts. My name's Eric Stone. Doses.
In my previous video, I stated 2 simple things. First, black Americans are incredibly...
I saw your video. I saw both of them, watched both of them. Thought they were kind of cute. By the way, watch JJ's video on this, actually, because I'd really want to see you refute the actual points he was saying instead of just constantly bringing up cost of living, as if you even brought it up to begin with, because you didn't even include rent in your cost of living calculator. But yeah, sure, whatever. Just watch JJ's video entirely, because you really seem to be missing the point here. You've been trying to push a narrative that black Americans are too lazy and they've just been stealing from other people's cultures and just been stealing this entire time and living already rent-free because apparently they can just use their welfare checks to get on by and they just don't even need to work to do anything nowadays. As though that's not a racist agenda that's been pushed by several white Americans to prove that racism is not real now. The fact that you made sure to illustrate the fact that other Americans from other countries are way richer than black Americans, the fact that you used welfare checks, specifically in your instance, the fact that in your last bit of your video, you went on a tirade about how black Americans need to stop appropriating African culture, as you, a white man, tried to sit here and explain to us how we need to interact with the culture that we were originally taken from. But it's really, really interesting to see you sit here and try to say that we're so privileged because apparently we could just buy 3 iPhones with our money, as if rent isn't $2,500 near where I live. That's an iPhone too, you know. That's 1.5 iPhones actually. And in fact, you're actually sitting on an iPhone right now. But you want to know how I paid for it? I didn't. I financed it. We're financing. Because if I had to pay this out of pocket, and a snap of a finger, my finances would come crumbling down. However, I still need a working phone for this society and economy that we live in. You can sit here and try to say, oh, you don't need a working phone. You can just use this, use that, use whatever. Well, my job and my work would be incredibly harder if I didn't. And so here I am. So you can sit here and use your facts and logic to push your racist agenda all you want, but the truth of the matter is that all that is absolutely fucking useless because it does not help anyone. It doesn't help Egyptians, it doesn't help black Americans, and it certainly doesn't help you unless you got the pity point that you wanted, unless you got the clout that you wanted. And so I really do hope that this is all great for you. However, none of what you said in that video will ever take into effect or be used as an effect, because you sit here and say that I'm privileged all I want. However, if I have to work down to the bone to pay my rent, it's clearly not doing enough.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world.
2 words I never thought I'd hear in the same sentence: black and privileged. And the guy goes on to say the reason Black Americans are so privileged is because we receive welfare checks. Like, I don't know which one was more racist. Like the race that's been tortured, abused, raped for 400 years. It's the most privileged one. Okay. Older Black Americans can tell you about watching their friends getting, ripped apart by police dogs. But we get welfare checks, so balances out, I guess. Like, what? And this guy fell right for the political propaganda. Because the people who use SNAP or food stamps or welfare the most are white households. White Americans are at 40%, Black Americans are at 25%. So not only is your entire argument wrong, you used a racial stereotype to perpetuate it. Okay, great.
Quickly, this is a stitch. I'm sitting at my desk right now, so I decided to talk about this.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more. Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA.
Over 70% of the people on welfare are white, only 13% are black, which means white people are disproportionately on welfare and black people are exactly proportionally on welfare.
Just to be clear, it concerns all Americans, not just Black Americans. All Americans are privileged as hell.
He goes on to say it's about time that we acknowledge that Black Americans are no exception. I don't think anybody's ever been like, well, actually, Black Americans are just as underprivileged and underserved as these people who have lived in war-torn countries. I don't think anybody ever said that. But also, like, what is your clickbait first part where it's like, Black Americans are privileged? Oh, by the way, I'm talking about all Americans. Like, why is our name in your mouth? Like, what do you have to do? What do we have to do with you?
America is literally the least racist country in the world.
He proceeds to say that we're the least racist country in the world because we've had a black president for 2 terms. Cool. What about sundown towns? What about racist laws that are still in place? What about them trying to ban critical race theory? What about that? Like, there's so many other things that we can talk about that aren't that. He then uses this picture to say that look at all the top of the most income households. Obviously, America can't be racist. They wouldn't be able to get up because they started up. That's why. Because Black Americans are born Black Americans, right? And so we start from the bottom and we have to work our way up. And so that's harder than immigrating from India, Taiwan, Japan, having a start of money. That's what these people did. Like, these people aren't the example that he set out of people that come from a war-torn Middle Eastern country. These are the rich people that come from those places. I don't mean that they're all rich, right? The richer ones are skewing the metrics. And you might be like, what about billionaires? Don't they skew the metrics? Sure, they do, but there's very few white billionaires, right? And there's a lot of white people in America. And there are a lot of rich people from these countries in America when there's not that big of a population of them in America. So it's like sample sizes also it's a bad example. He ends the video by talking about more or less manifest destiny. Oh, you just can't come to the Middle East and take things. That's white supremacy. I don't know why you're arguing with me about that. And then he also talks about how we take other things from other countries and we just paint it black. You can't do that. I don't think that's true. And I don't think we should really be acknowledging that argument. I'm running out of time, but this guy's stupid. All his points are stupid. And his video was stupid. That's it.
Americans, not just Black Americans. All Americans are privileged as hell, and it's about time.
Duh. This is so sad. I hope it's no surprise to you to understand that people born in first world countries have more opportunities and privileges than those born in third world countries. If I'm someone who lives in a third world country like Haiti, I cannot compare those to the struggles of somebody who lives in a first world country like France. Because though they are basically caused by the same thing, government, money, power, control, they're vastly different. However, if I move to France and live there for a couple of times for years long enough to understand the climate, I can then start to compare privileges with the people that live in France. Racial privileges, financial privileges, location privileges, because all these things exist. But you knew that, right? Because you're not just saying trigger words to get people to watch your video. Because you don't actually think that using black people to monetize your account is good, right? Because I hope you're not really using them to make something for yourself. Because I would like to think that you would like to be known as somebody who is honest and true with your word. Somebody who's knowledgeable enough that people respect, and not somebody that's using a whole demographic of people as a trigger to monetize their account. We're not doing that here, right? I hope not. But since we're talking about black people, because though you say, although, like, I'm not just talking about black Americans, I'm talking about all Americans, you're talking about black Americans, you got beef with us. When you search those welfare checks and who was receiving those welfare checks, what was the demographic that you found out was the highest? And I'm genuinely asking, because I don't even think you made a research about that. When you check those countries and the amount of money they made on a monthly basis, did you compare it to their state of living, to their cost of living? And now, did you compare that $600 that you said apparently people from New York are getting? Did you compare that to their cost of living in New York? When you were looking at all the privileges that black people have living in New York, did you check about gentrification? Did you look at the housing crisis and the rise of rent and how many black people are homeless because they cannot pay their rent? Did you look at the statistics of black people getting evicted in their neighborhoods? Or not even just black people, people of color as a whole getting evicted out of their neighborhoods because of gentrification and they cannot pay for it? No? Back on the welfare case, if you are so intrigued to understand that the government is giving so much money to black people, right? $600, yay. Did you look up any other groups of people getting more than $600 from the government? And for that $600 that black people are receiving from the government, apparently, did you check to see how the government takes it back double or triple over? No, you didn't. Because once again, you didn't look at the cost of living. You made this video because you know black people like me, and I couldn't help myself. But black people like me would help you monetize your account. Because black people drives your views. Because apparently it is black people that give you the platform that you need. The platform that you desperately want. And instead of portraying yourself as somebody that we can rely on for information, like someone who's just entertaining and I would like to follow just because of who they are, you instead want to come off as somebody who likes to use black people. Because that's what black people are to you, a means to an end. Wow, what a privilege for me, huh?
Okay, I'm tired of privileged African Americans born in one of the richest countries in the world using the millions of dollars from Hollywood to spread cultural appropriation.
Now, I usually try not to get in the habit of proving myself, but there's people in those comment sections literally being intentionally obtuse onto why this guy's entire post is half of him, like, being mad at the fact that a black woman was cast as Cleopatra, which, let's be real, Cleopatra was most likely not black. She was Greek. So I understand his frustrations there, but the way he goes to attack African Americans, jumping at the chance to do so, and then so many people, including black people from outside of America, not choosing not to see how anti-black this is. You heard what he just said, but I'm gonna play some more of his video.
In a documentary about Cleopatra in which she's presented as black. Producer of the documentary is Jada Pinkett Smith, who you might know for her husband's public violent outburst.
So despite the fact that Jada Pinkett Smith has been acting for decades, he says you might know her from her husband's, like, public violent outburst. The language he's using to describe African Americans right now, I honestly don't see how people genuinely, like, don't understand how that's racist. He's literally being anti-black, but I'm gonna keep going.
The black Americans try to claim people of other races as their heroes and role models means only one thing: their internal shame of being black.
So here, not only is he being presumptuous about the reason why African Americans tend to gravitate towards people who may or may not have been black historically, he claims that it's basically intrinsically tied to self-hatred of being black, which doesn't even make sense in this case. And also, as a clearly white, likely European man, he has no footing to even make these claims on. And it's also weird that he's taking this documentary that the majority of black people in America have nothing to do with. He's taking this situation and using it to talk against us. But yet we're the ones spreading propaganda.
But guess what? Needs of black Americans are not above the needs of Greeks and Egyptians. They have no right to play with other people's history like it's a toy in the hands of an entitled brat. Just look at this. This is average salary in Egypt, $586. And this is average welfare check in America. Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more.
Bet, please do tell me how privileged black Americans are.
Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference?
You missed already. I guess cost of living just doesn't exist. Cost of living in Mexico compared to the United States, Ukraine compared to the United States, Egypt compared to the United States, and Vietnam compared to the United States. So while we can just say, oh, these are very big economies and look at the difference in wage compared to the welfare checks, we must take into account how much money it actually costs to live in a given society in order to determine whether or not these things are disproportionate. And given that in every fucking country you just mentioned, the cost of living is so much lower than the United States, you can understand why the difference is there. Also, this video is supposed to be about how privileged black people are, but the first thing he talks about is welfare checks. Also claiming that a group of people are privileged because a welfare check was set at an amount that's higher than another country's wage is fucking dumb, considering the people that live in the country with the welfare checks are considered poor for that country in that economy that they need to live in. So saying, oh my god, you're considered poor here, but you wouldn't be in a different country is as dumb as saying, oh, you were just raped? Well, guess what? People have died, so you must be privileged.
People all over the world have to work hard for this money, while people in America are getting more for doing absolutely nothing, just because they are born in the United States.
Miss number 2, it would be a damn shame if the majority of people on welfare are actually working. Because, oh yeah, while we can complain about how high the welfare checks are compared to other countries, it isn't even enough to live in America off of, which forces people who are even working full-time to still work a job while being on government assistance. Again, because while we can play Oppression Olympics, context matters.
Now just imagine being born in Harlem, New York, one of the richest cities in the world, in one of the richest countries in the world, and complaining about not being able to get out of the ghetto, while some Middle Eastern refugee has to smuggle himself to America illegally in a cargo bay of the ship, not having home, not having money, not having citizenship, just to get the slightest chance at life that you had since birth.
It's a damn shame you don't even realize how stupid this just was. Level 1, let's talk about your logic. This essentially boils down to don't ask for anything more if you're already receiving more than somebody else. Which, for obvious reasons I would hope, makes zero fucking sense. That Middle Eastern refugee who had to smuggle himself on a ship in order to make it to America has it measurably better than a Southeast Asian kid who will live and die in the same village buried under plastic and trash from our pollution. Does that mean we should make no effort to make it so that Middle Eastern refugees shouldn't have to smuggle themselves into the country to have a good life? Does that mean that those Middle Eastern refugees should just shut up and acknowledge the fact that they're more privileged than somebody else? Fucking no! And if you say yes, then you're counteracting everything your entire video is about. Hence why Oppression Olympics is a dumb game to play. Level 2 of why this is stupid. Let's run the actual numbers. Seeing as you mentioned refugees coming to America, let's compare them to black people in America. Again, context matters. After 5 years in the United States, refugees have a median household income of $22,000. After 15 years, that grows to $37,000. And after 50 years, it grows to $67,000. Black people in the United States had a median household income of $30,400 in 1970. 51 years later, that number is $48,297, which means if we run the numbers on that, in the same amount of time it has taken refugee household income to grow by $45,000, black household income has grown by $17,897. So if I wanted to stoop down to your level and assume that money, devoid of all context, immediately denotes privilege, who is more privileged in the United States? This very point is something that you go on to contradict yourself on 2 seconds later when you go on to say,
and please, don't give me that excuse about America being racist. Here's the list of richest households in the United States by ethnicity. White people are not even in top 5. How could they all be so prosperous if the country is so racist?
Bucko, I don't even think you realize what you're saying here. This is exactly why context matters, because I'm not sure what privilege you're trying to preach to black people about, when not only do all the other Americans make more money than black Americans, average Americans make more money than black Americans. Would you really make the argument that for any other demographic in any other country, them making less than what the average person in their country makes is them having privilege? No, the hell you wouldn't, which is why you try to bring it to a worldwide context, because as soon as you start talking about American context, you get blown the fuck out of the water and start trying to disprove racism by Obama.
Can you name any other dominantly white country that had black president for 2 terms in a row?
Who's gonna tell him that the next president started a rumor that he wasn't even born here simply because he was black? Now we can talk about how a lot of these immigrant groups you mentioned have higher rates of college degrees, which is something that is quite literally selected for prior to immigration into this country, meaning a disproportionate amount of them coming over with education already, which is why they make so much more than the native-born population. We can talk about how Asian Americans have not faced the same institutional barriers as black people. We can talk about Harlem and how you're apparently confused that many black people can't make it out the ghetto.
And you can't get out of the ghetto, really? Man, maybe take a subway?
When the city was redlined to high hell. East Harlem had the 7th lowest household income among 55 other New York neighborhoods, and almost 1/3 of households live below the federal poverty line, and how it was literally the birthplace of the very Renaissance that was an artistic backlash to intense anti-black racism in the country. We can talk about the fact that while yes, slavery and racism exist in countries all over the world, the slavery that built the New World was chattel and racialized, which is something that was unique, that was not found in the Middle East, in Africa, or in Europe prior. But something tells me that if you don't even have the brain cell count to realize that you just made an entire video about why black people are privileged while using the same racist, factually incorrect statements that have been used since 20 years after slavery to justify why black people are in such shit positions, then something tells me you're not ready for that conversation. I award you no points. May God have mercy on your soul.
Black Americans are one of the most privileged people in the world, and we have to talk about it more. Here's the average salary in Mexico, in Ukraine, in Egypt, in Vietnam, all big countries with huge economies from different continents. And here is average welfare check in USA. You see the difference? People all over the world have to work hard for this money, while people in America are getting more for doing absolutely nothing, just because they are born in the United States.
Captain Northstar, was that you? Yeah, I can't put your profile picture up here because TikTok seems to get bent out of shape when I put you bigots on blast. Let's get it. All right, I don't know where you get your stats from. You probably added a bunch of shit together that doesn't even go together, but let's try this first. In 2022, the last recorded year of completion, the average household received $243.43 from SNAP, which is welfare money given to families for direct dollar amount purchases. But here's another thing, while you're talking about privileged black people and welfare. The largest group of people on welfare, 36.5%, are white. Moving right along. Now back to this for a moment. There are approximately 65 million people in this country on welfare or some kind of assistance. And of those, as I told you, 36.5% are white, while 25.8% of the respondents were black, 16% were Hispanic, 1% of the respondents identified as indigenous people, and the rest is made up of other. And as far as those countries you mentioned of Mexico, the Ukraine, Egypt, and Vietnam, guess how many of them are on the top 10 economy list in the world? All right, number 1 and number 2 top economies in the world are China. Number 3 and number 4 are Japan and Germany. 5, the United Kingdom. 6, India. 7, France. 8, Italy. 9, Canada. And 10, South Korea. So what in the entire hell are you comparing the United States economy to? Countries that are not even in the top 10. And all of those other stats you're talking about, income, do nothing to put a dent in the fact that white Americans hold 85% of the total U.S. wealth, but only make up about 60% of the population, while black Americans hold 4% of the wealth and make up about 13% of the population. Put another way, the wealth of the richest 400 Americans is approximately equal to that of 43 million black people. You're just a bigot with an accent that think black people should be happy with the crumbs from the table that we built.
Americans have what I call Occidental privilege, which is that because, as a result of US imperialism, we as the world have been forced to engage with your history and culture way more than you guys would ever have to engage with ours. Africans are constantly flattened to the same racist depictions, same one-note accent that a lot of people, when they hear it, they think that it's okay, they think that it's fine, they think that it sounds accurate, or that it doesn't really matter, but it very much does. It matters because for some people, this is the first time they actually are engaging with Africa. A lot of people are not going to come to the continent. They're not going to come over here. They're not going to come and deal with us. You know, a lot of the time, their first experience is through the media. Their first experience is through books or film. And if you watch a film, you've not been to Africa, you hear someone going, and you just think that that's how we speak, that's how we are, that we don't have voices of our own. You're going to continue thinking that about Africa regardless of whether or not that actually is true. What you are trying to purport to us with terrible accents and no real care for our languages or cultures, or no real acknowledgement of them, is that and we're all interchangeable, we are all one-dimensional, and that we don't deserve to tell our own stories. Now, African Americans are obviously oppressed within the borders of the United States. But by virtue of being American, you still have the position of power to be oppressors against us, and believing that you can step into that role without us being able to step into it first is still a very oppressive act. And because we've never really had that opportunity to do that, it is important for us to have the chance to be outraged about the fact that there are African Americans who are taking roles that should really be for continental Africans, or should really be a chance for continental Africans to show off their talent. I'm not saying that African Americans should not play Africans. I'm sure there's plenty of people who live in America and are actually actors and can maybe do the accent. Maybe. I don't know. But so far, I cannot name a single person who's able to do that. And Viola Davis especially, because her and Gina Prince Bythewood, they did The Woman King. What the fuck was going on there? Anyway, all of this is to say, I don't feel like it's a tit for tat situation. I think there's a power dynamic here that is at play, and I feel like African Americans need to realize that the power dynamic does not lie with us, it lies with you guys. And so that you guys are in control of narratives that we don't even get to control for ourselves.
Privileged Black Americans. Black Americans are the most privileged, right? There is nothing as worst as that faffle that man got. You know, when he created a video a long time ago and he ran away, he thought that people will actually not root out those videos. Like, he's now even looking, one sweetest part I love about TikTok is the fact that you will do video and go your way, they will help you to root it out. Because every single point he is making is pointless, as far as I'm concerned. Every single point he's making is useless. Every single thing he said did not literally go online. And I'm happy that white folks attack white folks. I did not send them to go and attack him. He put out the video and then used the particular video to do a video for him. But anyways, let me know as a Black person, because you might be on welfare and I'm not aware. Because the last time I checked, after looking at all of those welfare analysis, 70% of Black folks are the ones on welfare, enjoying every single thing concerning food stamp and so on and so forth. And even when the administration start kicking out their boards, start whooping their axe, they are coming out to also cry that right now they can no longer feed their kids, they can no longer survive, they can no longer do this, they can no longer do that. So how come did Black Americans are now the most privileged in the system? How come the Black Americans are now the most people that are enjoying more than the white folks? Just let me know if you think Black Americans really have all of this privilege that this guy actually mentioned. Do you think that Black Americans will literally be where they are today? They would have gone far, like far than expected, because I know who my Black folks are. I know what they can do. I know where they can deliver. I know what they can shake. So please, can you just cut us all of that crap and just let us have peace and go our way, do our things, enjoy our food? Subscribe, like, comment, and share, and let me know what you guys think in the comment section. Credit belongs to the original creators of every single clips and stitches we have in our today's episode. And this is just for educational purpose, not to come here and bash anyone and make anyone feel uncomfortable. Please, that is not our goal. Our goal is to make sure we make you feel comfortable here, right? But let me know what your honest truth is, especially as a Black person watching. And even if you're a white person watching, let me know, do you think that Black Americans are more privileged than white folks? Because it has been proven over and over that the people that are more privileged in America are the white folks. And that is why a lot of them are using their privilege against people that look like me, as far as I'm concerned. Anyways, with no further ado, I'll say bye and I'll see you guys in my next one. Bye for now. I love you guys. Mwah.